Focus on Headline. Now let's take a look at what major issues are making the headlines today on Focus on Headline. And joining us in the studio, we have our reporters in Kwon-swa and Yoon Hae-jung. Guys, welcome back.
Good evening.
Good evening to you guys. Did you guys work together this week or was it last week?
I think it was last week.
Oh my goodness. So thank you very much for filling in on Monday. That's why I asked, because I don't remember if I thanked you if you came into the office and I thanked you already, or...
I already heard you thanking me on air.
Yeah, and calling me Mr. Lee,
in.
right? Because I'm an old fart now. Appreciate that. Guys.
And hello, Seyoung.
Yeah, Seyoung not saying hello to me. And she said a late hello out of nowhere. Guys, we're going to start things off with weather, right? And anytime we start our stories with weather, it's always concerning torrential downpours. I think that's really an underestimate of what really came down early mornings today in the broader Seoul area and the adjacent regions on this Thursday, leading to the evacuation of residents due to swollen streams, closures of highways, a bridge in Seoul, always, of course, gets higher water elevation around this time. And again, subway services also being cut because of this. Hae-jung, you're going to start us off with today's weather updates here. Pretty bad day today for the Seoul and metropolitan regions.
Right. The metropolitan area has been drenched for 2 days in a row. Northern and southern areas of Gyeonggi-do province was the hardest hit, including Pyeongtaek, about 60 kilometers south of Seoul, which recorded hourly precipitation of 88.5 millimeters at one point Thursday morning. Near the inner Korean border, Paju, which saw more than 100 millimeters of rain just in an hour on Wednesday, the area received hourly downpours of 75.1 millimeters on Thursday at around 2 a.m. Gyeonggi-do province raised its disaster safety and countermeasure center emergency level from level 1 to level 3 at 8:30 a.m. this morning. And this is the first time this year that emergency level 3 has been activated. Now, in the capital, the northern district of Nowon received the most rain with an accumulation of 197 millimeters of rain from Tuesday to early Thursday morning. The capital region overall has experienced hourly precipitation between 30 to 60 millimeters, prompting flood alerts for 10 streams in the broader Seoul area. In Seoul, both directions of the Dongbu Expressway linking the city to Gyeonggi-do province were entirely suspended due to heavy rain, and both pedestrian and vehicle traffic were suspended on the submersible double-decker Jamsu Bridge as heavy rainfall raised the water level of the Han River. Heavy rain alerts have been expanded to more parts of central regions and southern provinces, which will also see up to 20 to 30 millimeters of rain an hour through Friday. Landslide advisories and warnings have also been issued across central regions in Gangwon-do province by local authorities.
It's so weird because the way that it's raining, it rains hard in specific areas, right? And you could drive maybe 10 minutes out and it doesn't even rain that much. Earlier this was, I kid you not, I thought this was going to be the end of me. That's how bad it rained. I could not see anything in front of me. Luckily, there's not a lot of cars in the highways at 5:40 in the morning. It was all muscle memory. That's how I was driving. Been driving around the same road for the past 3 years now, and it was just all memory, right? I kid you not. I was shaking after I got off the car. And that's probably the heaviest rainfall I've ever seen in my lifetime. But so let's talk about the characteristics of the heavy downpours that we're dealing with currently, and also most importantly, I think the forecast on what we can expect continuing through Friday.
We almost certainly know these downpours are expected to continue through Friday. But the thing is, the amount at certain times will be very unexpected.
Yeah.
And that's because the current torrential rain that started in the southern regions and is now affecting Seoul and the surrounding metropolitan area is characterized by mid-sized low pressure. And that is also what has caused the more than 100 millimeters of rain in an hour recorded in Paju, Gyeonggi-do province on Wednesday. Wednesday. Now, from this Thursday evening through Friday morning, mid-sized low-pressure systems are to meet with a low-level jet again that can continue to result in up to 70 millimeters of precipitation per hour. So what does this all mean? I won't get too much into science, but I feel the responsibility as a former weathercaster to go a little more in-depth into this. We hear a lot about low pressure systems, and by now I think automatically low pressure system makes us think of rain. A low pressure area is an area where the pressure in the atmosphere is lower than that of surrounding regions, but you probably have not that often heard of mid-sized low pressure systems. Now, if low pressure is a bowl of rice, mid-sized low pressure can be seen as one grain of rice. So forecasting models can predict low pressure systems coming from the west to the Korean peninsula 3 days ahead or even more than a week ahead. However, mid-sized low pressure systems develop in a very small area of just some tens of kilometers. And warm air and cool air, moist air and dry air all mixed together, and in that process you get a smaller low pressure system, but this develops in around an hour or even shorter time. Now, what is a low-level jet? Low-level jet can be understood as fast-moving winds moving horizontally but low to the ground. Now, one weather service website explains it as a, quote, fast-moving ribbon of air in the low levels of atmosphere. So the mid-sized low pressure combined with this low-level jet is what's leading to these heavy downpours, and that is why the Korea Meteorological Administration warns that the location of a mid-sized low-pressure system is difficult to predict in advance, even with the so-called supercomputers, which is why we have to stay on alert and keep our eyes and ears on the most recent weather forecasts. Meteorologists believe that 90% of heavy summer rains in East Asia, including Korea, are associated with these jets. Now, one study found that during the Korean monsoon season, there is an 88.2% probability that a low-level jet was involved.
Yeah, not surprised that it's hard to predict. Was it last Wednesday, I think, it was supposed to rain. Like, I mean, I don't turn on the radio first thing in the morning and see how the weather is or anything like that. And you look at it, the night before. And the night before weather forecast said that it was going to rain very heavily last Wednesday morning. It did not drop a single raindrop, right? And then for today, it was like I was looking at the weather forecast. Yes, it was going to rain, but not that bad. And next thing you know, it's just, again, torrential downpours here. This is where I think radios come in quite handy nowadays. Radios, people to still listen to radio, right? Then they get the weather forecast all the time, different with television. We'll keep you guys posted on the current weather situation here on the Korean Peninsula. Let's move on here. This is also quite concerning, although I think the level of water coming down isn't as significant according to the government. You have the South Korean Ministry of Environment saying on Thursday that North Korea appears to have started discharging water from upstreams of a dam near the inter-Korean border on early Thursday. From, I guess it was late Wednesday night into Thursday morning, early Thursday morning. But the thing with this is the two Koreas have previously agreed to give each other prior notice. Given the tensions right now, did North Korea give prior notice? No. That's the big problem. Haejung, what do we know in regards to this so far?
Right. Satellite imagery taken at 3 a.m. Thursday showed that the downstream of North Korea's Hwanggang Dam on the Injin River had broadened in width, a change that was not visible from photos taken at 10 p.m. Wednesday. However, Korea's Environment Ministry added that the amount of water released is not presumed to be significant. Meanwhile, the water level of South Korea's northernmost Pilsung Bridge on the Injin River had reached 2.88 meters as of 6:20 a.m. today, up 2.4 meters compared with the same hours the previous day. But the rise in water level was also due to the influence of heavy rain near the Injin River, aside from the water release from the North Dam. Now, if the North discharges 500 tons of water per second from the dam, it usually takes about 9 hours to reach the Pilsung Bridge. Now, North Korea is said to have not given any prior notice notices of the release to South Korea. The Environment Ministry updated the military and local government on the situation immediately after confirming the discharge and activated an emergency response system. Pyongyang did not give any prior notice when it discharged water from the Hwanggang Dam last Tuesday as well. As you've mentioned, back in 2009, North Korea agreed to notify South Korea in advance when it plans to release water from the dam following an accident that killed 6 South Koreans after the North discharged water from the dam without any notice. But since then, Pyongyang has given such prior notice only 3 times. Twice in 2010 and once in 2013, but has not done so since then, despite repeated requests from the South Korean government. In the meantime, heavy rain has also led to concerns that North Korean landmines buried near the inner Korean border could get swept up by rainwater and flow into the south. North Korea has been planting mines on its side of the demilitarized zone since April, and South Korea's defense ministry estimates that tens of thousands have been newly planted since, with some installed near rivers shared by the two Koreas. The defense ministry believes that this could lead to landmines flowing into the south amid the ongoing downpours across the peninsula. And the mines are leaf-shaped or made of wood, making them very hard to detect, so the defense ministry advises the public to refrain from touching suspected landmines and report them immediately to the police or ministry if spotted. And speaking of North Korea, just before going into the show, at around 5:45 p.m., the South Korean Joint Chiefs of Staff said North Korea has resumed sending its trash-filled balloons. It seems that the balloons are flying over the northern regions of Gyeonggi province, and residents in the area are getting warning emergency messages about the balloons.
Yeah, apparently North Korea didn't get the weather forecast because probably not a very good time to be sending any balloons when there's torrential downpour and heavy rains right now. But Kim Yo-jong has come out recently saying that there's going to be like new response measures to these anti-Pyongyang leaflets, which is why the South Korean residents have not been so happy with these activists, right, who are launching these anti-Pyongyang leaflets, because who's paying for all of this, right? Who's paying for all the damages they're incurring because of these the balloons that North Korea is sending, but also Kim Yo-jong coming out saying that there's going to be new response measures, and the military believes that these quote-unquote new measures could potentially be in the forms of these leaf mines that you just talked about, Hae-jung, where they could either intentionally or by accidentally send over these mines, which the military can say, or the government can say, listen, if anything looks fishy and it looks like a mine, don't touch it. But the problem with these leaf mines are that you can't really detect them with the naked eye, right? It's really hard to detect. And so with the heavy rain, with the floodgates opening, that could potentially lead to some of these mines entering the South Korean side and could potentially cause heavy damage, right? And even casualties as well. And so we'll see what happens. Very, very concerning here. Let's move on to talk about something more positive. South Korea is a step closer to building its first nuclear power plants over in Europe. To be more specific, Czech Republic or Chechnya, or however you want to call it. Apparently that's like the new name or something. As Korea's state-run nuclear power agency has been selected as the most preferred bidder in the nuclear power plant project in the Central European country. So let's get the latest news on this.
Right. South Korea's Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy, as well as foreign media, reported that Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power, in short KHNP, has been chosen as the winner or preferred bidder in a nuclear power unit's construction plan in the Czech Republic. The Czech government announced its pick on Wednesday local time, and it's estimated to be a 24 trillion won, or roughly $17 billion project for 2 nuclear reactors in Dukovany, a village in the Czech Republic known for its Dukovany nuclear power station. So here are some details on the project. Elektrama Dukovany 2, a subsidiary of CZ, an energy company, or Z. Yes, SJ, the American way. An energy company 70% owned by the state aims to build a 1,200 megawatt nuclear reactor in Dukovany starting in 2029. Another in the municipality and 2 others in Taemin are planned as well. So reportedly, Korea has a big chance to win the bid over all of them if the KHNP-led consortium is formally chosen. So for now, it's the 2 plants in Dukovany. That's the high possibility. Team Korea, how the group led by KHNP is dubbed, involves KEPCO Engineering and Construction, Korea Nuclear Fuel, which are all under the state-run KEPCO or Korea Electric Power Company, as well as the private sector like Tusan Enerbility and Daewoo Engineering and Construction. I think SJ is now going to search into the company's stocks or
No.
Just felt that
No,
way.
I know about the Tucson Enerbility. That's been going on for quite a bit. But anyways.
So if Team Korea becomes the constructor of the Czech plants, it'll mark the first time in 15 years that the country secures a deal to build nuclear plants since 2009 in Barakah, the United Arab Emirates. What's also significant is that the project in the Czech Republic could open up the doors for Korea's nuclear reactor business in the European continent. Korea, meanwhile, has been selected as a preferred bidder over a rival EDF from France, as well as Westinghouse from the US. I think this is really quite significant because we've got France and the US both pretty much nuclear powerhouses. Now, according to KHNP, Korea's continuous construction of nuclear reactors since the 1970s, so for 5 decades, and 36 reactors in and outside the country have gotten the nation to one of the top nuclear plant constructors with high-level technology. I think Haejung is also going to mention the reasons that the Czech Republic actually named. Also, Team Korea's on time within budget slogan may have helped in winning the bid because it looks like sometimes they have to increase the budget and then it takes even a longer time to construct something. I think in Europe we see that happening with buildings, for instance. You would have a deadline of, 2025, and then it's extended to 2026, 27. It's a normality, but I think Korea is, being famous for being on time with its constructions and also its shipments of, for instance, also in the defense industry.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to say. In fact, they're not just on time, but earlier than expected with the...
Even so, yeah.
Yeah, with the, what is it? What was it? I think it was the K2. Anyways, the reason what I was typing, so not stock prices, is the concerning thing with this was because KHNP was in that, dispute with Westinghouse, right? Because Westinghouse was saying that they have the intellectual property rights to the, the design of the nuclear power plants, and that KHNP cannot be using this. And so the courts, I believe, yes, the U.S. court actually dismissed the Westinghouse case against Korea last year. But what I was looking for was, I was curious as to whether or not Westinghouse said anything in regards to this, because Westinghouse was also one of the bidders for this. And Westinghouse, they're not happy right now. They're saying KHNP is not authorized to use Westinghouse reactor technology without Westinghouse's agreement. It said KHNP has failed to comply with U.S. export control rules, which it says requires authorization from the U.S. government before sharing technology beyond the agreed to Korea transfer. So they're really upset about this, and despite the fact that the courts already ruled in favor of the KHNP. Following this news, President Yoon Suk Yeol said the decision demonstrates the global competitiveness of South Korea's nuclear industry. Haejung, tell us what President Yoon had to say in regards to all of this.
Right. On Wednesday, shortly after the announcement was made by the Czech government, President Yoon Suk Yeol expressed his gratitude to Korean businesses, nuclear power sector workers, government officials, and the public for their united support as Team Korea, urging the related parties to do their best to win the final contract. According to the presidential office, since President Yoon's inauguration in 2022, Yoon actively promoted South Korea's nuclear power exports, holding more than 150 summits with 100 leaders of government. Last week, President Yoon, during his visit to Washington for the NATO summit, held a bilateral with Czech President Petr Pavel for a last-minute pitch, and he also sent a letter to Prime Minister Petr Fiala to emphasize the vision of bilateral nuclear cooperation. The presidential office attributed the selection of South Korea to the country's price competitiveness and technological prowess and the role of the private sector, in addition to President Yoon's sales diplomacy. The office also noted that Korea hydro and nuclear power has the lowest construction cost in the world and the highest level of safety and technology, having already successfully implemented the Baraka nuclear power plant in the UAE. The presidential office also expects the latest announcement to have a positive impact on the domestic nuclear ecosystem. In the meantime, as the Czech government named KHNP as the preferred bidder, Czech Prime Minister Fiala said that the South Korean offer was superior in all criteria. Now, we did mention this, but KHNP competed against Westinghouse and EDF France in the bidding order, promising price competitiveness and meeting construction deadlines, or even coming in more earlier. The Czech Prime Minister added that the Czech government wants to ensure energy security for future generations and have enough power at an affordable price, noting that this is the most expensive contract in Czech Republic's modern history.
Yeah, I mean, there's been at the start of the Yoon campaign for presidency, he's been always pushing for the nuclear energy, right? Kind of going against the previous liberal Moon Jae-in administration, who wanted to scrap nuclear reactors here in South Korea, just completely abandon the use of nuclear energy as a whole. But realistically, though, I mean, considering the amount of energy that South Korea uses, experts could always said that nuclear energy might be the only way. It's the cleanest. It's safe. I know it's got a pretty bad image because everyone talks about like the 3 Mile Islands and what happened in Fukushima and Chernobyl and stuff like that. But it's safe, right? It's relatively safe. It's clean, renewable energy. And it seems like export is going to be the big thing moving forward. Hopefully this is a big step forward in a long list of other export countries moving forward. We're going to talk about the months-long standoff between the government and the medical community. More than 10,000 trainee doctors who were, I don't know how to even phrase this now, considering this current case right now, on collective action. They've been on the leave from their hospital and their workplaces. They're likely not to return to their hospitals or their workplace, despite the government's long persuasion efforts. So tell us more. Why are we saying that they're probably not going to come back?
Well, after the final deadline to return to their hospitals, which was Monday this week, was left unanswered by most trainee doctors, the government this Thursday expressed regret over the junior doctors' decision. With that, more than 10,000 trainee doctors are likely to be dismissed from their training hospitals as they did not withdraw their resignations. Health Minister Cho Kyu-hong at a meeting on the doctor strike on Thursday said the government is reviewing the lists of trainee doctors who are to finally quit that were submitted by hospitals, adding it was unfortunate to see most of them are not likely going to return. Over 90% of some 13,000 trainee doctors walked off their posts in late February, protesting against the government's plan to raise the medical school admissions quota. For months, the government has offered measures to make them return, but it didn't work, obviously. Now, while the health ministry called on hospitals to complete the resignation processes by Monday, it said it won't suspend medical licenses. So that giving some room for the doctors to still return in the coming months. In fact, Minister Cho said that those who have resigned will be eligible for special measures to earn specialist licenses in September, with that urging training hospitals to actively continue to persuade doctors to return to work. In the meantime, to make up for the lack in doctors, the government vowed to begin a recruiting process of trainee doctors for the second half of the year. The health minister said the government will bolster monitoring of the medical scene and enhance the emergency system in a bid to minimize a medical vacuum. Amid the strong resistance by junior doctors, the government also vowed for a fundamental reform in the health system that reduces the excessive dependency by hospitals on trainee doctors. Meanwhile, Minister Cho denounced recent illegal actions online where lists of those trainee doctors who planned to return to their jobs were shared on messengers, saying investigations are in process. So he criticized these acts seen as cases of stigmatizing returning trainee doctors.
You know, there's like a couple of things I don't understand about this whole issue here because the Medical Professors Association had come out saying, basically blasting the training hospitals, right? They said, you can't be unilaterally processing these resignation letters and you shouldn't have process these resignation letters without going through sufficient discussions with the striking doctors, right? But what's a resignation letter, guys? Like when you hand in a resignation letter, right? Doesn't that mean that this is your intention to quit, right? That's your official intention that you're gonna quit. And you can't go, why are you pressing, you can't hand in a resignation letter and say, wait, don't process that. You can't process that. It doesn't go that way, right? And sufficient dialogue. I mean, the government the whole time has been they've actually been extending the deadline for weeks and weeks and weeks. They've given so many deadlines, I forget which one's which. And now the government's also saying that these training doctors they're going to try to persuade these training doctors to come back when the recruitment process happens in September. So there's yet another chance for the doctors to come back. And yet there's Kira is coming out. Kira, right? The Korean Intern Resident Association. They're coming out blasting the hospital directors for processing these resignation letters. I always thought that they wanted these resignation letters to be processed because that's the intention overall, right? So again, ultimately, it's the people here in South Korea, it's the patients who are running out of patience and basically upset with the whole issue and not understanding what's going on right now. And yet there's no solution to all of this because we're going to see a medical school admissions quota hike nevertheless come next year. Moving on here, President Yoon Suk Yeol carrying out a mini reshuffle of government officials on Thursday. Yoon nominated Yoon Sang-im as the new Minister of Science and ICT. He's a professor of material science and engineering. And North Korean defector turned Tae Young-ho as the head of the Peace Unification Advisory Council. Haejung, let's get the updates on this.
First, the new science minister nominee, Yoo Sang-im, is a professor of materials science and engineering at Seoul National University with an expertise in superconductor and magnetic materials. Yoo, aged 65 after earning his doctorate degree at Iowa State University for materials engineering, has been a professor at Seoul National University since 1998, where he served as the director of the SNU Research Institute of Advanced Materials. Professor Yoo headed numerous academies, including the Korean Society of Superconductivity and Cryogenics and the Korean Ceramic Society, having extensive experience in communication with the government, industry, and academia, as well as having participated in many R&D policies and projects. According to the presidential office, based on his long research experience and career in the field of science and technology, he is the right person to lead Korea's science technology policy. Moving on, President Yoon Suk Yeol has also tapped Tae Young-ho as the new head of the Peaceful Unification Advisory Council. Tae Young-ho was a minister of the North Korean embassy in London when he defected to North Korea in 2016. And he is the highest-ranking North Korean who has resettled in South Korea in recent years. He was also elected in the affluent Gangnam district in Seoul in 2020 as a lawmaker of the ruling People Power Party, but failed to secure a second term in the April parliamentary elections. According to President Yoon's office, Tae Young-ho's first-hand knowledge of North Korea and his experience in South Korean politics is expected to contribute to Seoul's policies aimed at peaceful unification with the North based on liberal democracy. Other appointees include Presidential Secretary for SMEs and Startups Kim Sung-seop as the new Vice SMEs Minister, and Nam Hyung-gi, an official at the Office for Government Policy Coordination, as the second Vice Minister of Government Policy Coordination.
Let's move on here. We briefly talked about an interesting report that came out from the New York Times in yesterday's program. A Korean-American expert in foreign policy, a former CIA specialist, and Sumi Terry, again arrested for allegedly spying for the South Korean government. Now, she's been released on bail, but let's talk about more in details because we got more information following yesterday's brief report on this. So let's get more.
Sure. Sumi Terry is a former U.S. government official, a renowned Korean-American foreign policy expert who not only was a senior White House employee, but also a CIA analyst and worked for U.S. think tanks. It looks like she used her expertise in acting as an unregistered agent for the South Korean government, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office in New York Wednesday. The U.S. Department of Justice on its website said in a statement, quote, Sumi Terry provided South Korean intelligence officers access, information, and advocacy in exchange for luxury goods and funding. So that's the gist. She was accused of violating the Foreign Agents Registration Act and was arrested on Tuesday local time. Terry was released on a $500,000 bail on the same day, though. The 54-year-old allegedly worked as an agent for the South Korean government without registering as a foreign agent and disclosed non-public information from the U.S. government that gave South Korean officials chances to access U.S. government officials. Court documents revealed Terry, for instance, discussed with a South Korean intelligence official her close ties to a senior U.S. State Department official who is in charge of covering Korean affairs and had served in high-ranking roles at the CIA and National Intelligence Council. These revelations are raising questions on whether the alliance between South Korea and the U.S. could be affected by this. Now, what did Terry receive in return? What could be a risky act? Luxury goods, expensive dinners, as well as a funding for a public policy program worth $37,000. A U.S. attorney in charge of this case said that the charges against her should send a clear message to others working in public policy, saying, quote, who may be tempted to sell their expertise to a foreign government to think twice and ensure you are in accordance with the law. And also, just on Wednesday, a documentary film called Beyond Utopia has been nominated for the Emmy Awards. So why am I mentioning this? Sumi Terry is one of the 3 producers of this documentary, meaning the nomination might be overshadowed by this recent case.
Yeah, so even with this, the top office actually said that they might actually consider inspecting and reprimanding officials of the former Moon Jae-in administration regards to this. But the mystery behind that statement is that it went from, she had allegedly collaborate with the South Korean intelligence officers from 2013 until around June last year.
Right, I heard for 10 years, so that would also mean the current administration.
Yeah, there's 3 administrations.
Oh, 3, right.
Yeah, there's the former Park Geun-hye administration, there's the former Moon Jae-in administration, there's the now Yoon administration. So I don't know what that means because you have to kind of investigate in everybody, right? And so we don't know what's going on here, right? These are allegations right now. We're going to move on. The head of the Food and Agriculture Organization, more widely known as FAO, the United Nations, has visited North Korea for talks on food security and nutrition, this marking the first visit by ranking UN official to the North since the COVID-19 border shutdown back in 2020. Almost seems like yesterday, right? Haejang, let's get more on this.
Right. According to the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization, or FAO, the agency's Director General Chi Dong-wi made a 4-day visit to North Korea from last Saturday to this Tuesday, becoming the first UN specialized agency principal to enter the country since the outbreak of the pandemic. UN personnel stationed in North Korea pulled out of the country as Pyongyang imposed a border closure in January 2020 due to COVID-19. Pyongyang began resuming exchanges with China and Russia in a limited manner after partially opening its border in August last year, but its border was not open to international organizations. The UN agency said that the visit aimed to reactivate and strengthen the partnership between FAO and North Korea in addressing food security and nutrition challenges in the wake of the post-COVID-19 pandemic, as well as enhancing the resilience and sustainability of agri-food systems in the country, calling Xi's visit a milestone in its ties with the North. Now, during his visit, the Director General underscored FAO's readiness to provide more expertise and support in food and agriculture areas, and visited the Gangdong Greenhouse Complex and a FAO-sponsored fish farm in North Korea. Pyongyang state media has yet to report on Xi's visit, and his latest trip garners attention over whether North Korea will further allow UN officials to return to the reclusive regime for humanitarian projects.
Yeah, I didn't want to make assumptions as to who the Secretary General is, so I had to look it up. He is a Chinese diplomat. He is Chinese national, which would help things, right, with the visit there and talking to the North Korean regime and trying to convince them that listen, we need to get these humanitarian aid across to your people as soon as possible, especially given the fact that it's monsoon season. Monsoon season is different in North Korea. It is devastating for the North Koreans, and right now they are in dire need right now, which is probably why last year when when Kim Jong-un and Putin had met over in the Russian Far East, it wasn't apparently the satellite technology that Kim Jong-un got in response for probably all those ammunitions that he sent. Instead, it was food. They needed food because things been pretty bad ever since the lockdown following COVID-19. Nevertheless, guys, thank you very much for your reports. Please stay safe, stay dry, stay cool, everyone, and we'll see you guys again.
Thank you, and have a safe ride, SJ.
You can listen to Korea Now with me, SJ Lee, by downloading the Arirang Radio application or tune in online by visiting www.arirangradio.com. So make sure you tune in Mondays through Fridays, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Korea time.